Hello and welcome to this NABS channel. NABS stands for Narcissistic Abuse Victims and Survivors. My name is Slavika Bogdanov, and I created this channel for more awareness, education, providing tools, and also hoping to raise funds to help victims and survivors, hopefully save some lives and help you all thrive. So thank you for being here. You can also go on our website, which is narcissisticabusevictims.com. It will be also in the description, and more information on how you can join our Facebook group. But of course, subscribe to this channel. That way you will receive more videos of this kind. I usually interview survivors and also experts, because I am a survivor, and I feel that the more I hear stories, the better I feel inside, and I feel I'm healing slowly but surely, with knowing I'm not alone and I'm not the crazy one that invented all of this. So it just feels good to be among the same kind of people and solve issues. In our Facebook group, we really have an amazing community now that helps one another, and together we encourage and resolve some problems. So thank you for that. And thank you, Martina. I'm having Martina Marsanic today. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your time. And thank you, of course, for accepting to be recorded and interviewed for our channel, so that we can bring more awareness and hopefully inspire a lot of people. So thank you so much for that, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I think it's a very important project, so I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you so much. And so I will start just by asking to share a bit of your story, how you encountered narcissistic abuse, and I guess we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I actually realized that I was a victim of a narcissistic abuse actually very recently. And I realized that my brother, my older brother, who is 14 years older than me, has a narcissistic disorder, which I was not aware of. So for me, I don't want to use any French words in this interview, but he was always, you know, the bad guy in the family, not only with me, but he was taking it out mostly with me. And I was really suffering from this my entire life, especially as a kid, because I was looking at him as a model. You know, he was my older brother, so he was very important for me. But somehow it would always, like, there were phases when it would feel like I was in love with him, and when he would give his all attention to me, and then phases when he would completely, you know, make me feel like nothing, and really use really bad words, you know, spit on me or things like that, and completely kind of disown me. And this, for me, like, I knew by heart this this pattern, so I knew what to expect. And this is how I grew up. So I was very familiar on a level of my body with this pattern, but I didn't know what it was, or I didn't know the bigger picture where it fitted into. And just recently, I found myself in a romantic relationship where I realized that there are the same patterns, or actually this person had such obvious patterns, and I thought, this is so familiar, like I know this very well. And then I was thinking about it, and then for the first time I thought, because one friend of mine mentioned narcissism a while ago, and I thought, well, you know, when I think about it, this sounds like it might be that. So then I actually started researching, and I realized that's exactly what it is. But then I also thought, because my brother is a narcissist, but my sister has grew up into a victim kind of mentality. And I thought it's impossible that we all three of us grew from the same family with narcissistic patterns, and that none of our parents is a narcissist. And then I realized that my mother is actually a covert narcissist, but it was very hard for me to understand that, because my brother is a grandiose narcissist, so he was very, loud and very important, while she was, kind of a victim in a victimhood kind of way. So yeah, I realized that was the kind of the what I came out of. And the interesting thing that I think is I haven't found anything on this online actually, and I think it would be, I would feel that it would be interesting to address it, is that at some point, because I felt so bad how I was treated by my brother as a victim, I felt that I don't want to be a victim anymore, or I don't want to feel like that anymore. So I decided to change my behavior, but I didn't know how to have a healthy behavior. So actually what I did unconsciously is I started mimicking the narcissistic behavior.
I love it.
Because I
Yes,
just didn't
totally
have,
understand.
exactly, I didn't have anything else to model. So I went from behaving like a victim to behaving like a narcissist, but having the feelings of an empath, and really I could relate to people that then became my narcissistic supply, for example. But it was never like I did not feel like a narcissist. I felt like an empath, but on the outside I was using all the patterns of behavior that the narcissist use. And when I discovered that, recently when I had this relationship, and I realized, yeah, these patterns of behavior are very, very familiar to me. I realized, yeah, they're not only familiar because of how I was treated by my brother, but also because how I was treating other people. And this was very scary. Yeah, very scary, and very also hard to accept for yourself, because then, you kind of have to accept that at some point you went in a wrong direction, and maybe you mistreated people. Yes, because you didn't know how to do it better, didn't have healthier models, but that you might have, hurt some people along that way.
I love what you're sharing, and it is something that it's almost taboo, right, amongst the victims now to say, well, openly, I adopted this narcissistic behavior, because we have a tendency to attract in our life and reproduce patterns of behaviors and of thoughts that are the most comfortable to us. So even if violence is something that is horrendous, but if we're comfortable with it, we will attract patterns of behavior and patterns of reactions that we are most likely to feel at ease with. So it's very unsettling and uncomfortable, right, to get out of your comfort zone and now try something completely new. Hey, I'm going to be nice to everybody and open-hearted, and and then be scared because how are people going to react, where because you can mimic, the reactions you're going to obtain if you act a certain way. So of course we think, well, if I act this way, I already can predict the behavior of others. And so I feel protected because I've been so harmed. This is kind of my shield of protection, correct? So I actually was thinking, because what I also realized, and this might be your case as well, is because we don't have, when it's in a family, we don't have any example, because usually we're isolated. Narcissists are isolated, the families are isolated. So we don't have any examples to compare, to see, oh, well, that's how we're supposed to love and be loved. And it feels almost like a Martian kind of exploration, right? It's so out of what we can imagine. I know I spoke to one of my aunts recently, And I'm always, I'm always protecting myself and being scared just because I'm so not used to that kind of love. And we need to almost be, we need to be tamed like an animal so that we start trusting others. If not, we slip immediately in that pushing others away and reacting with the same kind of behavior, so that we know we can manipulate and control others so they don't control us. So I totally agree with you. And I even thought of creating an app where there would be free counselors online where you can ask, how do normal people do this? How does a a person that has never lived this, how do they talk to resolve an issue? How do they
Exactly, that's the
love?
thing, because this is everything that you know, and that's the thing, because it's the known part. We always go towards known and away from the unknown. We are scared of the unknown, and it's not something that we seek naturally, or we are curious naturally as human beings, but our ego stops us from going into the unknown. So if everything that you have ever known is narcissistic behavior, whether it is a narcissist or a victim kind of behavior, you're always slipping into one of those. And the funny thing is, why I talked to my sister about this, and at some point she said, well, it sounds like everybody is a narcissist from what you're saying. And I said, yes, that's exactly that. Like, the thing is that if you came from a narcissistic family where your parents are narcissists, it's very hard that you are going to attract something else in your life. You're very likely going to attract the same kind of people that had the same kind of trauma in their families. So yes, it's very possible that when you realize that there is this thing exists, and maybe you are 30, I'm 30 now, so maybe you're 30 and you say, whoa, wait a second. And then you go through every relationship, close friendship, I don't know what, that you're going to realize that all of those people, or not all of them, but most of them had some narcissistic tendency, either towards the narcissist or the victim. And the thing about the thing that you said before, it's not only, the tricky part about narcissism is that it's not only about you don't know how healthy feels like, or you cannot recognize it, but even if you do recognize it, narcissism is so addictive. It's like a constant rush of adrenaline. And I think healthy for people who came from a narcissistic family, so they are used to it from when they were kids. Healthy is boring.
Oh my God, I love your.
This is honest talk. It's so, like you love me in a way that nobody ever loved me, but this is so boring. There is no fight. There is no extremes. Yeah,
I love your honesty, and you're right on point. It is a rush of, because a narcissist can bring us so high to such a high level that it's difficult. And actually, I want to create a documentary that's called, the name of it is An Enemy We Cannot Live Without. That gives you exactly what it is. So narcissistic, you're right, so right on point, is that they bring us to such a high that we get addicted. It's like a drug. We get addicted to that high, and we're almost willing to pay the price of the low until it gets to a low point where, of course, our survivor and our life is in danger, that we get into that vicious circle. And I don't know about you, but for me, like, the attacks always happened when I was at my most happiest. So when things were really going well for me, but that the narcissist did not contribute. If the narcissist contributes to the success, everything's okay, because they shine, it makes them even more shine, it's fine. But when the success doesn't contribute and it's only your private, at a certain point, I could expect the terror. Like I could expect the devastating blow that was gonna come and bring me to my knees. And my issue, you see, was that because of that, I developed a pattern of self-destructive behavior with or without the narcissist, because I'm so used to being brought down, but people can even imagine how low it can go. It can go from being really rich to being a homeless person. And the issue is that when you are with the narcissist, they're the one who manipulate that and bring you down, destructing everything that you have inside, and manipulating others and circumstances around you so that they make sure you fail, so that they can recontrol your own success. But then the behavior becomes, I'll do it to myself before anybody gets a chance to do it to me. So that way I'm, so that's another issue. But to answer your question, I studied a lot, a doctor called Dr. Joe Dispenza. Actually, one solution is, of course, going to counseling. And one of my goals is to have a big enough fund to offer free counseling to victims, so that, because a lot of it is pretty expensive. But I studied a lot Joe Dispenza, and what he even speaks of, he goes even further, because doesn't speak necessarily of narcissists, he speaks of pain. And what he says is that our cells become accustomed to the drama and the pain. Our cellular level becomes accustomed to the drama and the pain. And so the body will feel just like a person without a drug will feel like they need what they're accustomed to a cellular level. And so how he solves that is through meditation a lot, and through creating, and that's what I do a lot, is to create in your mind a world. And I used to do a lot of counseling and coaching, and what I do with the people is we create a world in your mind that you're going to get accustomed to. So that becomes, and so that so that the boredom does not exist, because you transform the patterns of excitement associated to something else. So you can get that rush with other types of experiences than the relationships rush and crashes that you got with the narcissist. Does that make sense? It's like a drug addict that would be addicted to one thing. You can slide what brings him that level of joy and pleasure into something else that would grow, and get adrenaline from very intense sports or something else, and accept that the boring is okay, the normal is actually healthy for us. And the more you'll distance yourself from the addiction, the more you'll feel comfortable with what is now really uncomfortable, being the normal, right? The boring love. And for me is also to develop the trust. How do you build the trust now? So how long have you ended all of this? How long has it been now?
Well, I ended that relationship 2 months ago. It's very recent, but it was not this way. I never had an abusive, like physically abusive relationship, and I made like big progress in my life. I was, up until 7 years ago, I was mostly in narcissistic relationships where I would be the victim and the other person would be a narcissist. But this was all very light and short term, and more like you could see the patterns, but it was not abusive. And then for like almost until maybe 6 months ago, I was in relationships, romantic relationships, which are the relationship that is closest to us, in which I was the narcissist and the other person was the victim. And 6 months ago, something interesting happened. I believe that's how the universe works. So I got in my life one relationship that was very, very, so I got two very extreme relationships. One was in which I was extremely the narcissist, like put in the narcissistic role, and the other person was very, very victim. And I was not, it was bothering me, like I was not okay with that, but at the same time, I did want to help that person, and I felt very connected to that person. And the other relationship was this one in which I was put in the more victim role, but I went through too many things, so I don't fit quite well in the victim role anymore. So I think that's why for this narcissist, in that case, for her, it was very, very challenging. So therefore not so interesting, but also even more interesting because she had to work on this supply very much. So it was kind of, they like a challenge. So it was challenging. And for me, it was interesting because I kind of started to get out of that and understand what was going on. So it was very interesting to observe how it works from one and from the other perspective.
Yes, that's fascinating. And so now how it's been, what, 2 months you've been really studying the question and analyzing your patterns and everything that happened in your life?
A bit more than 2 months. It has been maybe 4 months since I have been studying it, and 2 months since I've gotten out of, basically I got out of all of my narcissistic relationships. Even though not with my brother. So with my brother, I didn't have a relationship for quite a long time. And recently, 2 months ago, he contacted me again. And I went through this process in my life and everything. So I wanted to see how that works out. And actually, for now, because I do believe, I don't want to send any wrong message. I think it's very, very individual. This is my opinion. I think it's very individual if a person can change or cannot change. I do believe that people generally can change, but this has to come from them. And they have to have a certain level of consciousness just in order to get aware of what's going on, and let alone to seek some help or move from that point. But I did notice that my brother, well, I wouldn't say that he, I think a certain level of consciousness or awareness comes with years. So I saw some change in him with years. He was much more stronger and much, I don't know, much more aggressive when he was younger, when he was, I don't know, in his 20s. Now he's 45 years old. So, and he has 2 kids, he has a family. So it's like all these things changed him a bit. Maybe didn't change his route, but also another interesting thing that I don't know if this applies to all the narcissists, but I think it applies to the narcissist in my life. So it could be just that this is the pattern of narcissists that I was attracting. I felt when I was thinking about the people who affected me the most, who I've realized that definitely do have a narcissistic disorder, I realized that all of those people maybe came from being a child who was very empathic and maybe even more sensitive than what was expected from them. So that they were shut down as kids from their parents, whether if it was just, you know, maleducación, or if it was a narcissistic parent. But that, I don't know, maybe it's just something that, you know, maybe it's a theory that I have. I'm not an expert, I don't know. But this is something that I realized, you know, with my brother, who is very much a narcissist and who is very, has all the traits and has been like that his whole life and still is. He's just a bit, I think he adapted a bit to the society. So he understood that it's actually better for him if he just doesn't say everything that is on his mind, you know. So it's more of that kind of change, not the kind of change that he actually changed what he's thinking on, or how he's feeling. But it's enough to, you know, have one coffee of 1 hour and not get into an argument, and, you know, so I'm very grateful for that. But that was my feeling. And there is also my sister's husband is a narcissist, and I would say that, you know, she's in much worse situation in her marriage than, for example, the wife of my brother. And my sister is not aware of it at all. So, and she's not open to that idea. So I see those situations, and I understand how hard it is.
But let's remember that, you know, the point of view that we have is often also, you know, the narcissist is such a great manipulator, and the victims are so good at hiding the manipulation of the narcissist that and I'm not saying I'm correct, I'm just, you know, that your perception of your brother is probably altered by the fact that you are no longer his supply and the supply that he has might be so good at hiding their, you know, the inside issues that they become invisible. But you can tell from your sister because it's so close, correct? You know her inside out. So I, you know, dealt with a lot of people, and I've coached so many people around the world. And narcissists are the most, actually, they say narcissists cannot change because they never have the ability to come out of that state to realize who they are. And actually, a lot of them benefit so much from that state that they think that is the normality. So it's very difficult, and they think they're doing it. Like for me, you know, it was they were doing it. One, they were right in everything they're doing, so they don't even think that they might be wrong. And secondly, if they do something to harm the other person, well, it's the other person's fault anyway. They deserved it. It was their way of acting. It was, so they never have that sense of responsibility of what they've caused. And those two are kind of important when you change, feeling responsible for the actions and actually seeing that you're damaging, that your, you know, your behavior is damaging others, and actually caring. Yes. So, so that is difficult. So how do you see now, like, what is the plan, or how do you see your future? And how would you plan, like, your next relationship, or where you're heading now in? And also, I have a question that's, you know, maybe too personal. If it is, please do not answer. But do you plan also on having kids? You know, and what would that be like? Do you, because I didn't have kids, fearing that I would become the monster that I lived with. So I was so scared to impose that on my kids. Now I'm thinking of adopting. So that's why I'm kind of, you know, the same questions for you. Would you adopt or have kids? And how, you know, and how do you see the next relationship? How do you plan it so that you don't attract another narcissist?
Well, I don't plan my next relationship, but what I do is I work on myself, because I think that's the only way that we can actually change what we attract, because we don't really attract what we want, we attract who we are. So it's important for me to change with myself, to change my what I did was I got out of the narcissistic relationships. And I'm brutally honest with myself. I literally wrote a list of people who I consider a narcissistic supply for me, and people who treat me as a victim, or where there is this kind of potential. But I moved away from the victim side quite a long time ago. So, and I built myself into a pretty strong person. So it's very hard for me to fall into the, let's say, traditional victim kind of role or mentality. Obviously, there is always a possibility, but it's not very easy for me. I'm usually the strong one, and usually the role where I fall into now is more the narcissistic role than the other one. And I don't like that, and I don't want to be like that. I don't want to treat people like that. I don't want to, that doesn't fly with me. Like if that's how I'm going to treat people, then I'm going to be alone the rest of my life. Like I don't care. So I don't allow that to myself, but I understand that it's based on being honest, first of all, with myself, and then secondly, being honest with people. So I sat with each of these people and said, listen, I really appreciate you as a person. I really appreciate the support because these people for me meant support. The narcissistic supply was about support, attention, giving me validation, importance. And I said, I really, really appreciate what you did for me. And I really, at some level, I really do care for you. But this is the issue. I don't know if you can understand it or not. I do understand it, and I don't like it. And I don't want to support it anymore by putting any more time into it. So I'm not going to be in this friendship anymore. Most of these relationships were friendships. So I sit with each person and had a very honest talk, and I got out of those relationships, and I literally sat down with myself and wrote every single thing that I could come up with, or that I am aware of right now, because there are, like, literally on everyday basis, there are things that come up, and I think, like, oh my God, is it possible that, the way I drink my tea is connected to narcissism? And then I realized the connection, and it's just crazy. Like, it's mind-blowing, and it's scary at the same time, how something like this can go in every pore of your life. It's mind-blowing. But I cannot control everything. I do want to have kids. I don't want to have kids until I don't feel that I made a promise to myself 10 years ago that I really, really want to have kids. And I knew that since forever. But I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't have kids until I got healthy with myself. And that's very, very personal, like very individual, what that means. But I know what it means for me. I know that I want to give my kids, healthy behavioral patterns, that I want to give my kids a parent who is able to communicate, who is able to talk about their emotions, who is able to address their emotions, who is able to accept that maybe their kid is different from what they are, and have space in their heart and space in their mind to know that that's okay, that I can have a kid who is maybe anti-communication and which is my worst nightmare, but it's okay. If that's, I can do my best. I will, and I want to do my best. But if my kid turns out an unimaginable opposite from who I am, I want to be in a place where I know that I did everything that I could to give that kid everything that it deserves. So this is important. These are the terms that I put on myself, how I want to have kids. And I will not have kids if I don't reach that. But since I'm pretty close to reaching that, It also included, you know, financial stability and having healthy routines, healthy. I had a problem with smoking for a long time. So like quitting smoking, having a healthy relationship with food, which I also struggled with. And I think all these problems were mostly because of the narcissistic patterns that I was taught as a kid. So obviously I had subconsciously, I knew that there was something unhealthy in all these things much before I realized that it was about narcissism. You know, like at this point, just all the puzzles came together 4 months ago. But I knew all these things subconsciously, and I was kind of keeping track of them for a really, really long time.
Well, you know, I really appreciate you sharing honestly and truthfully, and you hit some things so right on point. And I think very few actually open up and share those. So I'm really appreciative. I would have one last question: is what would you give as an advice to others, whether they are in a narcissistic relationship or they're survivors, they came out? What would be your advice?
Be brutally honest with yourself.
That's a great advice.
That's a start, that's the middle, that's the end, that's everything that is. It doesn't matter. Like, another important thing is taking action, but I can understand and relate to people who are not able to take action, and maybe not able to take action for a really long time, and maybe doing the same mistakes over and over and over again for a really long time. Don't be hard on yourself. It's okay. And it's really important, especially if everyone and everything around you is against you. It's so important to learn that you have to be on your side. If no one else is, you have to be on your side, and you have to learn how to be kind to yourself and how to treat yourself well. And it's a journey. It's a journey to learn how to do that. But when you do, trust me, and it starts with being honest with yourself, trust me that everything and everyone around you is going to meet you right there.
I love it. Thank you so much. That's so beautiful what you just said. You know, I really wish that we do another video together, maybe in 6 months, 1 year, to see how this evolves and how you transform. It would be kind of nice to follow you and, you know, how you evolved. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really, I really appreciate this conversation. And I know it's going to have an effect on people who watch it. And everything you said is so true and so right on point. And it is because you are exceptionally honest with yourself that you can talk like that. So you're beautiful in every way possible. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And thank you everybody for coming today. Please share this video, subscribe to our channel. You can come also on our website, narcissisticabusevictims.com. If you want to, if you are an expert or a survivor and you want to share, you want to come and share your story to bring more, hopefully more healing. And I really know we can save lives together. Please post a comment below and I will reach out and we'll schedule an interview. So thank you very much for being here. And thank you all for coming also to watch this video. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.